just before Australia, people were talking about it and were, a combination of nervous. Do I risk my family if I go? And then on the other hand, this is my job and I need to be doing what I do. So very difficult if you're employed in Formula One at that time to know what was the right thing to do. Do you remember us saying to him, if you get the F1 drive next year, what's it going to be like? Are you ready? Yeah. And instead of saying that confident voice, yeah, I'm ready, he was like, I don't know if I'm really ready for it.
I think Lando will learn a lot from Dan. Dan's a multiple race winner. He knows what it takes to win races.
Hi, welcome to my blog, and today we're joined by two special guests. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
I'm Andy Donnelly. I'm one of the hosts of McLaren Fans Podcast.
And I'm Sarah Merritt, and I jointly work on the McLaren Fans Podcast with Andy.
Thank you very much. So first of all, I'd like to talk about COVID. I know we're sick and tired of hearing about it, but in relation to Formula One and how Formula One's been affected by it, as well as Carlos and Lando and how they might have been affected by it as well.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we can all start at Australia. It's probably a good place to start. I think everybody was geared up to go out there and have a race weekend. We were expecting it to go ahead. And then to have, at that time, a positive test in the team, and also, with it being a very unknown sort of thing back then, to have a test and the implications of it, who knew what was going to happen? But I think, personally for me, I think the team made the correct decision to not take a risk and pull out of that event. I think it was absolutely the right thing to do. And obviously that triggered a whole number of other events, but, that's got to have affected the drivers, the team members, mechanics, hospitality staff, everybody else who was out there. And, also the fans. There'll be a lot of fans that have travelled over to that race, spent a lot of money and everything else like that. So it seems to me like, that's the kind of place to start the sort of story, I guess. I don't know, Sarah, I guess if you got anything.
Well, I was just going to say it was a strange time because I'd been to winter testing in Barcelona, and I was hearing the teams in the paddock talk about COVID. Will we be going to Australia? Won't we? There was already rumours circulating at that point. So yeah, just before Australia, people were talking about it and were, a combination of nervous. Do I risk my family if I go? And then on the other hand, this is my job and I need to be doing what I do. So very difficult if you're employed in Formula One at that time to know what was the right thing to do. And yes, certainly we knew a lot of English fans who had travelled out to Australia, who were stood at the gates waiting to go in when it was literally called off. We know what it's like to look forward to going to a race. Some of us wait all year. We save all our pennies up to go to a race, and then to pay for the flights and be out there and literally be stood at the gate as it happens must have been awful. But still, I think the right decision. It's just the way, unfortunately, it unfurled, which, was hard for everyone to wrap their heads around at the time. But looking at it now, it was dead right to cancel it.
Yeah, it was. I think, in my view, it had to happen, really. So, I mean, it feels weird that still in the season, but 2020, weird year for Formula One, really. It's good to see some fans back at the races now, though. But yeah, it's been a bit of a weird time. Another sort of big topic that I think I've seen in the last sort of week or so was Lando coming out and actually talking about his struggles with mental health. I think McLaren have also partnered in 2020 with Mind, and they've done a few things I've noticed on their YouTube channel, as well, with Sainz doing some stuff with his helmet. I was just thinking, do you feel that Formula One do enough supporting drivers' mental health, and what sort of things does Lando and Carlos face every race weekend and leading up to races as well, that might impact their mental health?
Yeah, I think in that in Lando's article, he said that he'd been working with a mind coach for quite a few years, and one of the things that he said was that you don't want to give anything away to anyone else, but actually he's found that he had to go and talk to somebody about it. And I think that's really quite an important point to put across, that no matter what, if you are struggling with something, go and speak to somebody about it. Somebody that you can talk to will make a huge difference. I think it was it 2018 we met Lando for the first time?
Yeah.
Yeah. We met Lando back then, and he's a very, very shy kid. I think.
Do you remember us saying to him, if you get the F1 drive next year, what's it going to be like? Are you ready? Yeah. And instead of saying that confident voice, yeah, I'm ready, he was like, I don't know if I'm really ready for it. We were like,
he must have been very nervous, just apprehensive as well, because obviously had a bit of a rough year leading up to Formula One as well. So good year, but rough year. So yeah, I mean, he's impressed us all, I think, with his drives this season.
One of the best things Lando does is he tells the truth. He's honest. He gets off the track, and if he's not happy with what he's done, he beats himself up and he stands there and says, "Oh, that wasn't good enough." Yeah. And I often tweet him and say, "But dude, you did really well. Don't be beating yourself up so hard." But he's totally honest. But I do feel that when the drivers talk about keeping things under wraps, they're really talking about not giving away anything that would give one of your competitors perhaps the edge over you. One of the most interesting people to speak to actually about mental health things, I spoke to Eric Boulier about this a couple of years ago at testing, and he was referring to the time when he was working at Lotus with Romain Grosjean and managing him. And similar to Lando, he was seeing a mind coach and speaking to someone about his feelings and talking through all of that sort of thing. And he found that incredibly useful to do. It's funny that we don't hear all of the drivers saying they're doing that, because as far as I can see, there's no bad side to it at all. Everybody should be talking about their feelings, admittedly privately for them, because they're sportsmen, so they don't want it all out there. But yeah, you'd expect everybody to have someone they speak to like that.
Yeah, especially with Lando still being so young as well. I mean,
what's he, 21 now? 21?
Yeah, 21. Just had his 21st birthday recently. So yeah, still being so young and discussing his mental health. I think it's he should be proud of it, really. So
yes, very brave, and hopefully it inspires the younger audience out there to actually kind of, if they need help, get help.
Yeah, I think he also connects quite well with a lot of young Formula 1 fans, because I know he does quite a lot of like streaming on stuff like Twitch. So someone like him coming out and discussing his mental health is vital, really. He's the perfect figure, really, for in Formula 1 to come out and say something about it. So yeah.
Now we've talked about some good stuff here, but just something I'd like to touch on, Jamie, is you said, what do Formula 1 do well towards mental health? So here's something I don't think we do see being done very well. The Red Bull Young Driver Scheme has in the past been scathing. If ever there was a way to break down someone's confidence, that was the wrong place to be at that time. And I think it's worth noting that I think they're being a bit kinder to Alex Albon at the moment, overall in Red Bull. But I am worried that will go the same way. The way they pick up and drop people takes no account of their mental health at all.
Yeah, they seem to get them in, sort of don't provide them with enough resources, go all out on max, and then they get the consequences, really. And then it's Alex, it's Pierre, those are the ones that suffer. unfortunately.
In the past, they've been terrible. There's been many examples over the years.
Yeah, I know before as well. Yeah, it has been. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, that's a good point you raised there. Yeah. Moving away from COVID, mental health, more into 2021. Ricardo obviously is joining us in 2021, but at the moment, I think McLaren have got a really good relationship going on with Carlos and Lando, because they seem very equal in terms of their in terms of qualifying as well. In races as well, they're relatively similar. Lando picking up one pole, and obviously in Italy that Carlos got second. But do you feel like Daniel coming in is going to disrupt maybe the dynamic in McLaren?
I think he's a known quantity. We've seen him in two other teams, certainly in Red Bull and in Renault. I think we know what we're getting. We're not getting another Carlos, because Carlos is Carlos. We're getting a Daniel. Now, I think there's already a bit of a relationship there between Lando and Dan, off the track anyway. And I'm hoping that kind of continues. Whether they'll be as close driving-wise as what Lando and Carlos is, I think probably not. I think Lando will learn a lot from Dan. Dan's a multiple race winner. He knows what it takes to win races. I hope that he can do that in a McLaren, and I hope that he can rub some of that off onto Lando and kind of help with the sort of experience side of things. Certainly when Carlos was leaving, I was quite disappointed, but then when they announced Dan, I was, if I could have picked anyone as a replacement, it would have been Dan. So, as a fan, I'm very happy about that. I do think the dynamic will continue. I think we might see maybe a little bit more shenanigans from them both next year.
Yeah, they're big personalities, the two of them, I think.
Yes.
So, yeah.
I think the thing you haven't mentioned there, Andy, is timing. Now, when Lando and Carlos got together, it was part of our transition, our coming back to McLaren being nearer the top. So they were the perfect duo to work hard, team up, share data, look at everything we're doing on the car during a transitional phase. Now, we're getting back to the top now. And long may it continue. But next year, not only will the dynamic be different because Dan will be driving with Lando, but it will be in a different place in time. Imagine what it would have been like driving in the Honda years. We've got these different periods we go through, and I think that's what's going to change the relationship. I think the car's going to be strong and we're going to be nearer the top, and that's going to change the relationship, because maybe they'll be fighting each other for position on track. That could mean one of them is on a podium or not. Our guys at the moment drive very well together because they're not really in that position where they're having to battle each other. Occasionally we see them on track near each other, but there's not been any sort of multi-21 situations ever, has there? There hasn't been anything like that.
No.
So that's what I think will be different. I think Lando and Dan will start off with a similar relationship to how he has been with Carlos, but as the year evolves and we're progressing on track, I think that will put them under a little bit of pressure.
Yeah, I think, good point, because you've got McLaren obviously coming up in Formula One, like in the last, this season especially. I mean, didn't expect at the start of this season to be in a shout of third, but long may it continue, really. Lastly, I just want to finish on maybe a little bit of a downer, but I think vital we talk about it. I know you mentioned it on your podcast as well, but Romain Grosjean's crash, it was absolutely horrendous and horrific, but I think it just shows how far we've come with technology in Formula One and safety in Formula One. Just thinking, it's more like I was really impressed, especially with all the drivers, but Lando and Carlos as well, for seeing that crash and then being able to regroup and then going back out there and delivering 4th and 5th, which one of our best results of the season, really. So, I was just getting your thoughts on that, really.
Yeah, I think, you've got to have a strong mentality to get back in that car when you've seen that. I think, if we go back to, Jules Bianchi, Senna, other incidents that we've had in the past, the drivers have got back in the car and they've gone back out again. And, personally, you would say, if you don't want to get back in that car, that's fine. But to them, it's their job. Yeah. It's their livelihood. They probably have the mindset of, if I go back out there and do it, then it's done. I don't then wait a week to have to do it again, or 2 months or whatever, and get it over and done. But also, I think having seen Grosjean back in the back of the sort of the medical car, relatively okay from like what you say was a horrific accident. I've only ever seen accidents like that in movies with racing cars. I think everybody was probably very relieved. And we've just to touch on something that Grosjean said today, that back to your mental health sort of point, was that he said, he stared death in the face, and he said he's definitely going to need some help after that. And I think you touched that, Sarah, you touched on him having a coach back in, I think it was 2012 after the Spa incident, where he got banned for a race. I think he started using one then. So I think, I think there's a lot of strong sort of people in racing, but I think you've also got to remember that there's a lot of support as well. And like you've said, that I hope he gets the support that he needs from Haas and from the Formula One, because I know that he'll get it from the fans. Yeah, you can see that already.
Every fan is united, really. It's
personally, I hope we see him back in Abu Dhabi. Just to end his career on something a little bit different.
Yeah, we hope so.
And end his Formula One career, Andy.
Yeah, Formula One.
What, you mean there's other racing things? What?
There certainly are. So I was going to say, touching on, we saw the drivers come into the pit lane, and I don't know if you've heard the as they were going around on the red flag lap. I don't know if you've heard the radio from Charles Leclerc, where he saw. So that's quite haunting. He saw the fireball in his mirrors, and he's then asking the team for information. Who is this? What's happened? Are they okay? Is there any news? And I would imagine all of the drivers were like that. We just haven't heard it. But I did notice that a few of them had different coping mechanisms. Lewis watched the replay on the screens many times and then felt that he had to talk about it. He had to tweet whilst they were in that red flag. He sent out a message about it. Sebastian Vettel, I believe, watched it, but then said he didn't want to see it anymore. And some of the other drivers, some of them wanted to see it, some of them didn't. But the best thing they could have seen, obviously, was that shot that we mentioned just now, Andy, of Grosjean sat in the back of the medical car. Because although we now know he's got burns and they are really superficial injuries compared to what could have been, I would imagine most drivers that looked in their mirrors and saw that fireball thought, that person's not coming out of that car. And imagine how that must feel. I mean, we don't go to work every day with that risk hanging over us, do we? It's just. And the other thing I'd say is Roman's going to be missed now as the head of the GDPA, the Grand Prix Drivers Association, because I think we talked about that in 2012. He had some rough times. But he's really matured, and he takes a lead with the younger drivers now in giving advice and helping them. I wonder who's going to take that role. I wonder who in the paddock is going to step into that GDPA role now. But the most important thing of all is he looks like he's on the road to recovery. And like Andy says, really hope he gets to drive in Abu to say his final goodbye, even though there'll be no fans there.
Yeah, hopefully he does. Yeah, it would be a send off after that. So yeah,
most definitely. And I've also read, I don't know if you saw, Karine Chanduk shared some information on Twitter earlier this week about the race suits and how they're now fire safe for twice as long, for 20 seconds.
Yeah, but
Previously, it was only 10 seconds.
And the hands aren't. The hands.
Yeah, because of the gloves.
10 seconds. So
yes, lots to learn from it.
Yeah, so many things really. From the weekend that I'm sure the FIA will come to terms with, and hopefully that won't happen again ever. So yeah, thank you very much, Andy and Sarah, for coming.
No
problem. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you very much, and hope to speak to you soon as well. So yeah, thank you very much.
Sure.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, and like you
Thanks,
said,
Jamie.
we'll have you on the podcast some point.
Yeah, thank you. That would be great. Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah. Just let us know when is it your sort of first year project you're doing or something?
Yeah, it's a blog for like a chosen subject, and yeah, I've chosen McLaren. So yeah.
Well done.
Right.
Yeah,
good man.
Thanks very much. Yeah.
Right. Are you putting it up live somewhere? If you put it up live, give us a tweet, and we'll retweet it for you.
Yeah, I'll
problem.
Put it up live. It will probably go up in a couple of weeks, and I'm sort of like, because it's like I need to get like a few things up before I release it live. Yeah. But yeah, apart from that, yeah, that's perfect.
No problem.
Thank you.
Great stuff. Good to speak to you.
Thanks, Jamie.
Bye bye.
Cheers,
Jamie. Bye.
Bye bye.